with the AI doing the talking. So that's not counting any of the appointments that you all are doing yourselves. If you're in the system texting or you're picking up the phone and calling them. So that's pretty cool to watch. Over 50% ratio. That's not too shabby. We're still sitting at about 55% of the conversations are being handled by the AI and 45 are being handled by the users. So it's really cool to see. I do want to give some props and kudos. Actually, we've been talking about this bro of ours, but shout out to Mark. Mark, you had 4 apps this week, I do believe. So pretty amazing seeing all of that come through. And it's been a great week. I do want to share this with you guys. So bear with as I stop that, and I want to share this with you all. Here's the power of a robot that doesn't get tired and has no emotion. So yes, sometimes it can be glitchy, but sometimes it works pretty good. So I want to show you this. So this was one of my leads back in, you can see it first messaged this guy on February 29th. It texted him, it emailed him, then on March 1st, it did it again, March 1st, did it again, March 7th.
Like when did it start, Paul? Paul, when did that start? The very beginning of communication?
February 29th. February 29th.
And Paul, was this an old lead or a new lead? When did this guy put in his request?
Yeah, so this guy put in his request in mid-December. In fact, I believe it was December, right on, I believe it was December 15th, right? So first reach out was February 29th. It goes through. Truth be told, I completely forgot about this. So this did all of the follow-up here. March 7th, again, March 7th, March 8th, March 11th, March 12th. And then finally, my mouse, on March 14th, oh my goodness, he responded. So I was able to jump in. You can see I noticed that he was a Vikings fan. I happened to pay attention that they lost their quarterback to the Atlanta Falcons this week. I threw that in there. I said, you have some time for a call? He said, yes, I do. And yes, that does suck for my Vikings team. So I thought that was pretty cool. I also have this one here. Exact same story, same campaign, the 29th. Goes through, it continues to follow up. He doesn't respond until right here. I'm going out of town for a family emergency. I responded to him. We got back, and I'm going to reach out to him when he gets back. So kind of cool to see there that, I don't know how many of us would continue to follow up with a lead that was an inquiry back in mid-December, and it had messaged, you could see it messaged him probably 12 times over the last 2 weeks. And then they responded and got appointments, right? So that to me is really cool, seeing the power of this AI tool there. So cool to see. One other thing, Jesse, I'm going to turn it to you here, my friend. So if you've been on last week's Fireup or you were on the onboarding on Wednesday, our good man who handles the finances said that we could pull the trigger on this contest because Dave, Bo, and I, you guys know, as salespeople, we're super optimistic all the time, and we say yes to just about everything. So Jesse keeps us in check, but he gave us the okay on this one.
I do like to spend, but not as much as Dave.
That's hard to beat. No. That's hard to beat, Jesse.
I'll take it. Let's we got our March Madness still going on for anyone that hasn't heard, anyone that is appointed already with Tier 1 and at least Transamerica or Great Western. So we have a pivot. They can get 50 free leads on us. And so we're just going to take that out of Dave's paycheck and do that
Perfect.
for you.
You're welcome.
Now, please do not. We've asked to email Bo at onesolutionagency.com to purchase those leads, to get those. But you must be contracted first. So if you have a question as to whether you've been contracted, please email me, Jesse, Jesse at onesolutionagency.com. I'll put it in the chat after I'm done. Please just, you should already have received emails that have got you set. I know we have about 25 individuals that have not taken advantage of this yet. I'm going to reach out to you directly today to make sure you do that. But please feel free to email me if you want to get an update. I don't have a super good visibility on Trans-American Great Western, other than I can probably see if you're close. But yeah, please take advantage of it. It's a great way to do it, but I would recommend when you want to do that, talk with Bo on when you want to make it live in the AI. Because what happens is we don't want to buy the leads and dump it in unless you're ready to go. Because like Paul said, you're going to want to nurture those on the AI and see what it's doing. It's going to help you not only learn, but it's going to help you interact too, and add some touch points like the Vikings, like Paul did. So that's it. Please take advantage of that. Otherwise, I think we're going to pass it over to Dave, right?
Yeah, I do want to chime in real quick on that. Actually, I did, and now I'm having a brain fart. So yes, we'll go to we'll go to you, Dave.
Awesome. So guys, we all here for the most part have an Aflac first approach, and we want to try to give Aflac the business. We love Aflac. They've been amazing. But with that said, Aflac isn't going to accept all of the opportunities that come through in this FE world. Aflac's got a little bit kind of a middle of the road underwriting policy. It's got maybe a little bit narrower window with age, 45 to 80 is the window to be able to sell somebody. That's why we're having you guys get contracts with a couple other carriers, with Trans-America and Great Western. We do have some others out there. If you've got E&O and you want to look at a couple other carriers, let us know. We can help you out there too. But those two carriers, are our pivots, and those pivots happen when we run into something like they pull a drug. You start off having a conversation about what medication somebody's on, and they list a medication, and you see in that Aflac on that drug list, you see those X's, and you don't have the ability to sell an Aflac product. Well, when that happens, we want you to be able to pivot. You've invested in leads, we've invested in leads. We want you to make a sale and make money. So that's what we're going to pivot to. First, Trans-America. Trans-America, another big brand, another well-known brand, and clients know and like it. There's an awful lot of tall Trans-America buildings in an awful lot of cities. So I'm going to show you guys real quick how to quote another product. Now, as I'm going through this, guys, please know that on our onesolutionagency.com, Jesse is loading the sales guide for these other products on there as well. But you can also pull them from the Trans-America site. So when you come into Trans-America, this is what your landing page looks like. You need to come right here in the dead center, Insurance Central. So when you launch Insurance Central, it'll bring you in here. And if I want to do a quick quote, there's a lot of other stuff, and there's probably even faster ways to get here, but this is how I found it. So you click on Tools, and if I scroll down, I can quote a term product. Now, we also know when you're out there, especially those of you in the Aflac world, you're out there talking to your payroll groups, there's opportunities to sell everybody. Paul gave an example earlier this week that you can quote about anybody on a life product. The Trans-America FE goes all the way down to 0. Technically, they have to be alive for 15 days before you can quote the product. So 15 days old to 85 years old on the final expense product. But then there's opportunities that come in. You may get somebody younger or somebody who wants a bigger product. We heard Dave Williams, about Dave Williams a few weeks ago about being able to use this life product for a buy-sell agreement, selling it to partners, owners of companies. And if they want something bigger, they have the ability to get that. So when you come into Trans-America,
which we have, by the way, Dave, just to interject real quick, we've seen that twice this week, by the way. I know our brother Mark sold one this week where in the lead, the FE lead, they actually wanted more than what the FE product will allow for. And so this pivot had to happen. Both were sold, by the way, over 200K face amount policies. So that's why we wanted to show this to you.
Yep. So guys, as you jump in here and you click that tool, so you can either run an income protection quote, run a life quote, or you pull marketing resources. All 3 of these guides are on our website as well. But if you want to jump here and look at the difference, so that, like, if you look at the Super Series, right, this is term life insurance. But I think the important thing is to notice the features, right? So this one's available from age 18 to 80, face amounts up to $10 million. So depending on the age bracket, they're also not having to jump on a treadmill and get a paramed, and it'll limit how much they are. Now, if somebody's wanting 10 million, they're going to have to do a med search, probably do a paramed. But you notice non-med underwriting available up to $2 million. I don't know if you guys can see that. I know it's typically hard to see on the screen, but I'll zoom it in just a little bit. And then you get your choice of what term you want, 10, 25, 10, 15, 20, 25, or 30-year term. So pretty cool product when you're having a client that's wanting something a little bit bigger. The other one that you have here is this Trendsetter LB, same style product, but it's got a living benefit. It's got a critical illness. It's got a couple of components to it to give them a living benefit as well. So clearly, if you have the opportunity to sell payroll product, and you can sell them a critical illness and a cancer plan, definitely do that. Absolutely do that. But if you want to do this add-on, you can. So I want to show you guys a quick quote real quick, and we'll start with this Trendsetter. So pretty easy information. And I'm looking at Jesse DeGroff. He's on the screen. So you guys can write all this down. I'm just going to ask Jesse for his social, his driver's license number, and a few other things. And credit card, you guys can update that. Now I know where Jesse lives. So we can jump on and where's Washington? No Washington on that product. All right, then Paul, I'm going to quote you. Sorry. Get Paul's credit card number.
I got it.
Just leave it as Paul DeGroff. There you go.
Nope. Paul, have you quit smoking yet? Okay, good job. Male, birthday. Guys, you can definitely write this down for Paul. Paul, birthday?
Yep.
Are you testing me?
I was actually.
I know. I could tell because you didn't jump up. Did I get it right?
You did. You nailed it. Look at that.
Mark, February 11th. How many of you guys know your brother's birthdays, right? Paul's a wise old 42 years old. I'm assuming because, Paul does a few risky things, but we'll just quote him preferred just for fun. Paul, how much of a face amount are we talking, brother?
Do 250.
All right. I can run a quote for Paul. It didn't like Oregon for some reason, Paul.
All right, go to
Should we put you in Ohio? Preferred 25,000. It's thinking. There we go. So a 10-year term for Paul will be looking at $17.21 for a 10-year term. For a 15-year term, $20. 20-year term, 24, 25, 39. 30-year term, $52 for $250,000 for Paul. So guys, just know that you've got this product out there because we know opportunities come up for bigger product sales. Definitely, clearly from this quote, make sure that product, we may have had to probably pivot to the other product for the LB for Paul in the state of Oregon. So make sure it's available in your state before you quote it. But you guys have the ability, and you saw how quickly it'll run a quote for you. So if you have it pop up, you've got a nice pivot. I'm going to point at Mark. So again, kudos, Mark, on a great week, buddy. And it's only Friday morning, so I expect more greatness out of you today, pal. But he sold an FE product to a client, and she asked him about being able to buy for her son. Am I right, Mark? Nod your head if I'm right. Son was in his 30s, something like that. So Mark got to turn around, pivot, sell a product to a couple $100,000, I think, was sold to the son. So anyway, there are opportunities for that too. Again, Aflac, we want to go Aflac first. If we can do Aflac, let's do Aflac. Let's help build the company that's helped all of us. An Aflac product is a very good product. It just doesn't fit all the time. So, Julia just made it. I saw the comment pop up real quick that she wrote one on Aflac, sailed right through. And about 90 plus 92, 93% of all of the Aflac product is going to go through with a point of sale decision. You're going to know. So you have an opportunity there, but you've got other products that you can pivot to, and it's a very simple pivot. So
yeah, but Julie also said the deal breaker was Aflac. She had to pay quarterly, and you want to pay monthly. So she's going to go back and get them now. So
Oh, there we
you
go.
have the option. Yeah.
Perfect. So Paul, anything else you wanted me to cover on the TA product?
No, I think that's good. We just want to make sure you all knew that you had that option because we, again, we did see that twice this week, and I think we're just going to continue to see that more and more. I know Larry Morris sold one this week as well that way. So just making sure you have all your options out there available to you.
Absolutely. So with that, we've got a special guest on the phone with us. So she jumped on the phone and immediately taunted me and Paul that it's like 81 degrees in Florida, where Terry is right now. We're super excited to have Terry Parker join us today. Now, Terry's got a new last name, but in my brain, she will always be just Terry Parker. That's the way she is. Terry and I have been friends since I met Terry in 2006 at Focus with Aflac. Coughlin, you were probably there at that Focus with me. So it's been a long time that Terry and I have been friends. And, it's funny because the very first time I met her, I walk into my first RSC meeting. I had just come back to Oregon. And I told a joke that somebody said it smells like mothballs in here. And I went, how do you get your nose between his tiny little legs? Nobody laughed. Straight crickets, except for one person, Terry Parker. Hey, look, I can say this stuff now, Paul. I have no HR to crack me. One person laughed.
I must have had a face
with
there.
my comment. Yeah. How did you get your nose between his tiny little legs? And Terry laughed. I'm so appreciative that somebody had a sense of humor in the room. So
See, I've
Terry,
always got
I
your
knew
back,
you weren't
Dave.
expecting that introduction. But guys, Terry is amazing. And she's got some insights into this business that rare if anybody would have a view of this business like Terry has. And Terry and I were on with Bo a couple of weeks ago, actually getting her set up in Woo Sender, and we started talking about it. And Terry started talking about the funeral business, and we were asking her questions, and it was so insightful for us. So I'm going to let Terry give you guys her background, not only in insurance, but also in the funeral business. So Terry, with that, I'm going to let you take it away.
Well, thank you, Dave. No, I don't remember me being the only one in the room laughing. Hello.
Yes, it was you.
But I guess you can see I've always got your back.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm Terry Parker Cowan now. And I was in the funeral business from 1983 until 2003. I started out in the funeral business as a receptionist at a cemetery and moved to California to work for the company. I worked for the world's largest conglomerate of cemeteries and funeral homes in the world. And this cemetery, they had just purchased it, and it was over 300 acres. It had a funeral home on grounds, crematory on grounds. It was the flagship of the company. And I was in a position where I dealt with families at the time of need. And long story short, I wound up being the sales director for the operation. And we did over 4,000 cases through the funeral home and over 1,700 burials a year. That's how big we were. I can't remember the number on cremation because back then, cremation had not really evolved yet. But now, people think that they can just be cremated and whatever, and it's cheap and get it over with. But there's 3 prongs to the funeral business, and it is the funeral home, the cemetery, and the crematory. And even though we had all those things in one place, they had to coordinate everything. Okay. Because the funeral people don't do the cemetery stuff. The funeral people, or or they didn't have any money to get buried. Oh, yeah. So that's a misconception too, is that the cremation is cheap and I don't have any money anyway. You can still have a service. Okay. And there's so many ways to do different things. But the funeral home is where you start when a death occurs, because they're the ones that go out and pick the body up, bring it back to the funeral home, and then meet with the family to find out what they're thinking. Or do they have an insurance policy? And this is something I thought about the other day, you guys, is are our policies assignable?
Mhm.
They are?
Mhm.
Okay. So a funeral director can take the policy that you sell to that person and attach it to their bill. And then the funeral home deals with the insurance company. Okay. And then as far as the cemetery goes, they are burial, mausoleum, crypt, entombment, and they deal with the cremation. Because what are you going to do with the cremated remains after the cremation? So they sort of help you find, in the cemetery, they help you find a reasonable way to take care of that person after they're cremated. The funeral director will help you understand the options and coordinate and plan whatever kind of service you want. And I've seen simple services, and I've seen the most extravagant.
Hey, Terry, along those lines, what's if I came in and somebody passed and I have no money, right? I'm like, I got to do it on the cheap. I got to do it on my credit card. How cheap could you get somebody in? Like how cheap, if I'm really cutting every corner I can to do a service and bury somebody?
So you want to bury them?
Yeah, if we want to
No
bury 'em.
cremation.
Not a
So I
cremation.
would think,
I want to do both. I want you to tell us on both scenarios.
okay. So with a run-of-the-mill simple casket, burial in one of the, and it also is going to depend on where you are, because
Right.
California
Right.
prices versus, Oregon or Florida or whatever, they're all different.
Right.
But on a national average, a low-end funeral, you could get with the burial for probably $4,500.
Awesome. So Neil asked the question a couple of weeks ago. What would somebody do with $2,000? Like, why would a policy go so low? Well,
Mhm.
I would rather have to only come up with 2,500 out of pocket versus,
Right.
to cover that 45 than
Yeah.
all of it. So, okay.
Right.
And what about on the cremation side, Terry?
Cremation side,
How cheap could we get it done?
depending on the funeral home that you go through, because you have to go through the funeral home first. And
Yep.
if it's just a cremation and scatter, if you pick up the cremains and scatter them, that's going to range anywhere from $500 to $1,000, depending
Okay.
on where you go.
There you go.
The most
Awesome.
expensive is going to be a casket, sort of a higher end casket with a full funeral service at a church, and then burial at whatever cemetery, and you've got transportation, all that kind of stuff to put into that mix. Up to, and then you have a viewing, the whole shebang, and then be cremated. That's going to be the most expensive funeral service, because you basically tied in everything, and then plus your niche in a cemetery.
What would it cost like that, Terry? What's the high end? What's the high end you've seen? And then kind of give me middle of the road for a burial.
Well, there's caskets that can run, you know, $35,000-$40,000 for a casket, which is
No thanks.
crazy.
Hey,
But
just I want to make a note. If that's going to happen to me, Paul, Mark, when you bury me, please just bury me like in a Mercedes or something. That'd be cool. Like, and then you can just drive it into the hole. It'll be fantastic.
You're going out weekend at Bernie's style, just so you
That's
know.
true.
I thought you wanted like marinara sauce in your casket.
I do.
Never got a bread.
No, that moved on from that, Mark. It's now a party. Terry, what's an average though? When if somebody came in back in the day, somebody passed, and they just, they don't want I'm like, most of our clients in the FE world are like, hey, we're not fancy people. We don't need fancy. We just want a nice funeral, and burial.
okay, so if you have funeral and cemetery with a burial in the ground, it's probably going to run you in a medium price casket. It'll probably run you about 7,500, 8,000.
And then then what's my cost at the cemetery, Terry? I know you've seen a number of different cemeteries and they range. What do I have to pay the cemetery? Am I just paying for the plot?
No, there's more to it. So if you have a full burial, you've got the grave, you've got the outer burial container, which even if you're going to bury cremated remains, you have to have an outer burial container. And an outer burial container is nothing but and there's fancy ones. There's ones that are copper and but just a concrete liner that is like a shoebox with a concrete lid. The others are water, they don't let water get in, that kind of stuff. And you've got the opening and closing of the grave, no matter if it's a burial or a cremation.
Is that somebody dig the hole, Terry? Like, is that just somebody digging the hole and filling the hole in? Okay.
Yes. Yep, that yard crew piece. So you've got that. You've got your outer burial container, your grave, and then your headstone. Unless you choose to leave the grave unmarked. So that's going to run you, depending on the location of the gravesite. If you're in an old country cemetery, they want you to pay $200 and then $50 a month for 10 years for the endowment care.
Geesh.
To keep the upkeep of the property. You're going to look at cemetery wise, probably around $4,500.
On top of the 4,000 to 7,000 you paid the funeral home.
Yes.
And that's not fancy, right, Terry? We're not talking anything extravagant here.
No, that's not extravagant. No.
Terry, in your experience when these families came in, how often did people already have these things taken care of versus the family all of a sudden having to plop down a check or pull out their credit card?
Well, most of the time they came in with nothing and not educated on anything. They didn't know if there was an insurance policy. They didn't know if there was money in the bank. I mean, people come in and they just think because their loved one is deceased that the funeral home is going to take care of them. And, if they don't have the money, we can make payments. Well, no, that's not the way it works. So what I'm trying to do with the people that I deal with through you guys is sort of work it with inflation. Because as we go, a funeral is not going to cost in 2035, it's not going to cost what it does today. it's going to be more expensive. It's just like taxes. See, death and taxes get you, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And in this
So-
case, it's death and then taxes for the death, right? Essentially.
Yeah. And mausoleum is going to be your most expensive. A heart level mausoleum or a private mausoleum. And there's what everybody needs to understand is people will always spend a little more when a death occurs because they're grieving. They have a lot of regrets. It's just a big emotional thing when that happens. And you can just ask me, you know. But that's why a funeral director has a bad reputation sometimes, because the family is just so devastated, and they'll come in and say, we want the best casket for such and such. So they go back there and show them the casket in the showroom that's $20,000, when in all reality, they don't need that. They could do a $3,000 casket, put flowers on it, and when the lid is open for the viewing, you only see 6 inches of the casket. So a big la-di-da casket is not really necessary. But if you got the money to throw away on something like that, do it,
Terry, how's the impact of final expense, selling final expense? How do you see it impacting a family, right? I know you've dealt with a lot of tragedy. How would having a final expense policy impact a family?
Well, it takes the burden off of coming up with the money. If the funeral home will accept, and the cemetery will accept the assignment of insurance, it takes a load off. I mean, a big load. Because you don't know which end is up when a death occurs, and especially if it's somebody close.
Right.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's so much better to have something in place than to have nothing.
Yeah, there's enough burden on the family with the passing, right?
Yeah.
To adding the financial strain, and then, Paul and I, and Mark, the three of us, we were dealing with my mom's passing, a year and a half ago, and yeah, you walk in and you don't know what you don't know. To Terry's point, and you have no baseline of how much anything costs. Haven't spent a whole lot of time buying a headstone and a plot and all of this stuff. So I want to give you guys an opportunity with a pro like Terry on the phone to ask any questions around right, to help you guys really to be able to feel confident in talking about the need for final expense. So Terry, would you mind taking questions for a couple minutes?
Oh, no, sure.
Cool. So you guys feel free to either put it in the chat or unmute. Paul, sorry.
Yeah, I've got one, Terry. So you've already sold a little bit of this. I'm just curious, with your background and your sales experience, how are you able to position it? Do you have any tricks of the trade on how you position it in your conversations?
Well, when I'm talking to them and they're like, oh, that's a lot of money, I just tell them, if you don't do something now, be it whatever it is, you've got to have something in place to alleviate the heartache and the worry of getting the money whenever you pass away. Because you've got children, I found out they've got children and spouse and they're all going to be devastated when you go. Oh, no, they're not. They're going to be happy. Kick me out the door. No, that doesn't happen. So I tell them it's better to have something rather than nothing. And all of this can be assigned to the funeral home.
Yeah. I like that. So kind of paint the picture for them a little bit of, here's what will actually happen yeah. Okay. I like it.
So because I'm a numbers guy, I kind of hearing all the numbers you said, Terry, it sounds like when we're quoting, probably, giving maybe a couple options for budget, but probably around 18,000, 15 to 20,000 in that range is probably going to be close to covering some options. Does that sound about right?
Yep. Well, and then the people don't understand all the expenses incurred after being at the funeral home.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not going to have a service at the funeral home, and they're not going to have a service at the chapel at the funeral home, the funeral home or a church, they've got to go find somewhere to have that service. So that's an additional expense that's going to come straight out of pocket. So, you better start thinking about this stuff. And nobody likes to think about dying, but the unexpected happens. Mm-hmm. So everybody should prepare. Men are the worst.
We're going to live forever.
Oh,
I think my wife just heard that. She agrees with you, Terry.
Oh, I've had guys say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, well, you're not getting out of here alive. Hello. So I've had my share of dealing with that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's men are typically not open to discussing it. My husband right now, he goes, why do you want to think of that? Why do you want to put stuff, set stuff up? I'm like, oh my Lord. I said, because one of us is going to go first,
That's right.
Done that. So you need to, nobody can go up against me with what I have experienced, basically being in the funeral business and then losing Ken and Haley,
Hey, can I ask a question? Is this a good opportunity for that?
Yeah, Neil, fire away, buddy.
Hey there. So Terry, sorry, I jumped in a little bit late, but you have been selling life insurance to people for a while. Is that what I understand?
Yes.
Okay, so I would love your input on this because, like you just said, especially men put off buying life insurance way too long, and even at the final inch, they still put it off. It's amazing. One of the things that I've ran across when consulting life insurance with those people who keep putting it off is, I think my credit union offers something. I could just go over there and get something, right? Now, obviously, that's just an excuse to delay it further, but like, have you had that, and how do you like to overcome that?
Well, I tell them that you better make sure you know what you're talking about. Because a credit union or a bank, they may offer you a life insurance policy, but it's for accidental death only. So unless you're going to go out and wreck your car and die, they're not going to give you that $2,000 policy.
To that point too, I came from the banking industry, and we offered credit life. So we talked about it, but it was credit life and disability. So we were attaching the life insurance to a mortgage or another piece of credit. So really all we did is we let the client pay, make sure that we got paid and they paid the premium. That's essentially what we were doing from a banking perspective. Hey, we offer credit life. Then you don't owe us any more money when you're done. So like we were ensuring that the bank, when I say the bank was being protected. So oftentimes that's what you're seeing from lending institutions is credit, life, and disability.
That's really good to know.
Charmaine, thank you for sharing that. Cool. Any other questions for Terry this morning?
Awesome. I have a question.
Terry? Oh, fire away.
Terry, when you were helping people that were coming in with the death of someone, what percentage of the people were prepared, would you say? financially?
gosh. Well, they were prepared in different ways, maybe. Like they might have a final expense that they bought in 1955. Well, how much do you think that's going to help them? That'll pay for the flowers on the casket these days. That's why I'm saying always plan. Like, I don't think that a policy should be written for anyone under 20,000. Just allowing for inflation. And, you know, most of the time, if that policy is written for 20,000, they'll spend it all on the service. That's what I've seen for the funeral home,
So to prepare
cemetery.
for the
They've
future,
got
they maybe need
20,000 to
50.
spend.
So they should count on inflation and plan ahead. If it costs 25,000 for this, somebody in Washington to,
Yeah.
burial, headstone, the service. So everything is 25,000 right now. It's going to be more later. So they need 50.
Mhm. Another good thing, and this, I don't know if y'all would do this or the carrier would do this, but if somehow, once you sell the policy, you're basically done with that person. You might get something saying that, John Smith died. But if we could do some kind of follow-up with that family after that policy is written and send them like a planning guide. I mean, I don't know if any of the carriers do that or not. But
Not
could
that
be
I've
like-
seen, not that I've seen, Terry. I
Okay.
have not seen that from any of the carriers right now.
Okay. Because that's something that, I mean, it addresses everything that you need to, your wishes, how you want it done,
I noticed
Awesome.
on the Transamerica when I logged in, there are some really good sales resources. And all the carriers really, and it talks about selling the final expense. So it touches on some of the points of planning for it and why to do it. But yeah, I think it'd be great to kind of study those and see what other points we could add in for, just considering for future as well.
Yeah. And it just gives you another, maybe it's done by email.
Yeah.
And we as agents can forward or whatever for another touch to that family.
Yep.
Yeah.
And guys, with the carriers, to Terry's point, each of the carriers definitely allow you to, you can go and see your in-force block. And I know when you're selling payroll, you can go in and you can see the group, and then you whittle it down from the group level to the policyholder level. With this product, because it's a direct to consumer product, you have the ability to go and look at your pipeline and your in-force business with each of the carriers. So to Terry's
Okay.
point, if you want to give them a nudge down the road, do a follow-up, any of those things, you've got that there. But you can always go back in and look at your in-force business, including who the beneficiary is. So when you do see a note come through that somebody does pass, and you guys, we're selling life insurance to older people for the most part. You're going to get some death claims. They're coming. So just be aware, and fantastic points that you can, what Terry said. Paul, you had a couple things you wanted to mention.
Yeah. So one, Terry, thank you always. A wealth of information. Anytime we hear from you, talk to you, you've always been a powerhouse in this industry as long as I've known you. Not as long as Dave, but close. I think we first met in 07 or 08. A few takeaways I had, and keep this in mind, a big reason why we wanted to have Terry on is because of her experience. And a lot of us probably don't have that experience of outside of this is life insurance, but what it is that it's going to cover, right? And Dave mentioned it. Our family went through with our mom just about a year and a half ago, and there was a lot more to it, and we didn't want to deal with it. Thank goodness Mark was there and handled the lion's share. Thanks again, Mark. But to remind them that, hey, there's a lot that goes into it. You know, there's the funeral side, there's the cemetery side, there's the headstone side, there's all of these details that go back and forth. And a lot of these people aren't prepared for it. They don't know everything that they have to go through. And on top of it, it's highly emotional time to be able to go through that. So Terry, thanks for that information. Just keep that in mind as you're talking to folks. I would ask questions around all of those areas. You know, are you prepared to be able to cover the funeral service? Are you prepared to cover the cemetery side? Are you prepared to cover the you know, all of the headstone piece, you know, all of the different things? Are you prepared to honor this family member the way that you want to? This is really what we're preparing people for. So thanks again, Terry. I also want to remind everybody, March Madness. So get your 50 free leads on us. Reach out to Bo. Just make sure that you get your appointments squared away. If you have questions on your appointments, Jesse, they can reach out to you, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So take advantage of that. And my brain fart fog dissipated. And I remember what I was going to say back when you were talking, Jesse, which is this, is when you pull the trigger on those leads, when you're ready to nurture those leads, because what we're seeing almost every single time is the second Bo presses the button and says go on those leads, you're starting to see the first appointments coming through within about the first 5 to 15 minutes. And a lot of them, you're also going to start seeing these conversations of saying, what is this about? I don't know what OSA is, or huh? And so you can go back in. That's where you want to nurture it and say, hey, for example, when I mentioned just yesterday, the guy said, I'm lost. I'm not sure what this is. And I chuckled a little bit and I said, hey, I've been assigned by One Solution Agency to walk you through the life benefits that you inquired about. This was way back in December. And he went, oh, gotcha. Okay. So you want to jump in and take advantage of those leads and that conversation, that contact happening right there. Dave, Jesse, Bo, anything you guys want to add before we let everyone run?
I have a
March
question
Madness.
really quick.
Yeah.
So did y'all design the thing that they fill out online?
For the
The
lead?
for the lead forms, Terry, or for, yes.
Okay, can you put on there language preferred?
Yep.
Yep,
I think that would
that's the
be-
request we
See.
have in. Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
That would be.
We've
big help.
requested that on the lead side, Terry, for that as well, so that people can go grab Spanish leads. We haven't seen that. I know it went back through. It was going to compliance for them. Compliance has to approve everything. That one I can't see a compliance giving a headache, but like any compliance, it's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
be a bunch of lawyer nerds
Right.
trying to figure out a way to make sure that we don't sell more insurance. So anyway, that request is in there, Terry. Yep.
Okay.
Great question. Awesome, guys. We appreciate you. We're super excited where we're going. Thank you for being in on the ground floor of this agency and growing this thing to be big and profitable for all of us. So, you guys, we are super excited. Take advantage of March Madness. If you have questions with contracting, email Jesse. If you have a problem with leads or getting leads and getting into Woo Center, make sure you email is it leads@onesolutionagency.com. So guys, thank you very much. Have a happy Friday. Great to see everybody. We appreciate you. Oh wait, I do have one quick note. Testing will begin next week. We're going to be using a couple of people for testing, and what sparked me is I saw Jan Marie jump on. Hi, Jan. So we will be testing the SSO button on Aflac to be able to sell the core products. We got the green light on that. So we're going to use a couple of you for testing. Jan Marie asked for it first. Jan, we're going to have you be one of the testers if you would. And we want to do it in a number of different places. So we're going to be reaching out to a few of you guys to test the SSO, the single sign-on button at the bottom of the Aflac page. You see other products available. That will be going live here shortly. So they got it worked out. Testing worked. So we're going to run a test for a week or so, make sure everything works smoothly, and then we're going to turn it live for all of you guys. So that's my final comment, Paul. Back to you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have an amazing weekend. Happy hunting. Happy selling.
Bye,
Spend our
guys.
money. Go buy
Bye,
some
guys.
leads.